43 naval crew members were killed, and 60 sailors every year were injured on U.S. Navy flight decks between 1977 and 1991. This is the deadliest job on a destroyer flight deck you've never even heard of. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button because the most dangerous seconds come next. Most people hear dangerous Navy jobs and they think of combat, but naval aviation has a different kind of danger. The kind that lives in noise, wind, heat, heavy machines, and timing so tight it feels cruel. The numbers prove it. A Naval Safety Center database review covering January 1977 through December 1991 recorded 918 flight deck injuries, including 43 fatalities. That isn't a war log. That's part of the job, and the incidents behind those numbers aren't legends. In May 1981, an EA-6B Prowler crashed during landing on USS Nimitz, killing 14 sailors and Marines and injuring 45 more. That happened on a deck built for aviation with room to spread out, with an entire carrier's manpower behind it. So, ask yourself the obvious question. If it can happen there, what happens when you compress the stage? Because a destroyer helo deck isn't a carrier flight deck. It's tighter. It's closer to the edge, it's closer to the water, and when a helicopter lands on a moving destroyer, the margin for error shrinks so hard, it feels like the ship itself is grating you. You do not have space to drift. You have a painted landing box on steel and a crew that has to make that box behave like a runway. Where do you go if you slip? Where do you go if the wind shoves you half a step? Where do you go if the ship rolls right when your boot is half planted? Here is the first mental shift most people never make. The landing isn't the finish line, it's the handoff. The pilot gets the aircraft down. Then the deck has to survive what comes next. Rotors are still turning. The aircraft is still full of energy. The ship is still moving. And now human beings have to step into that danger zone and do physical work with no pause button. So what is more dangerous? The approach you can see on camera or the seconds after when everyone assumes the danger is over? This is where destroyer aviation separates the tourists from the professionals. A helicopter down on deck isn't dead. It is alive. It's loud enough to make shouting useless. It is pushing air like a storm, and it is sitting on a platform that is never still. That means the most dangerous job is not the one that watches from the safe line. It is the one that moves in close right after touchdown. The one who steps forward while everyone else instinctively wants to step back. The one who has to physically secure the aircraft and make the deck safe again before the situation can drift into chaos. On carriers, some people have heard about the green shirt mentality. The sailors who sprint into a landing area because something has to be reset by hand before the next aircraft arrives. The hardware is different on a destroyer, but the rule is the same. After every landing, something must be physically secured and made safe again by a human being on deck in a short window with no room for hesitation. And here's the question you should keep in your head. When the machine is still dangerous, who has to be close enough to touch it? That isn't a theory. That is a receipt from destroyer history. In September 2013, an MH-60 Seahawk went over the side of USS William P. Lawrence, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, during flight deck operations. 2 aircrew members died and another sailor was injured. That's a destroyer deck reminding you what the edge means when steel is wet, space is tight, and timing is unforgiving. How many mistakes does the ocean allow when your deck is basically a postage stamp? Now think of the environment that creates that outcome. The destroyer is moving because the ocean never stops. The wind is changing because the wind around a ship is not static. It funnels, it shifts, it surprises you. Then rotor wash hits and the air turns into a shove. Loose objects do not stay loose. They either get pinned or they become projectiles. The deck is not just metal. It is a surface that gets sprayed, oiled, and slick, and it is moving under you while you are trying to stay stable. At that moment, you are not on land. You are on a moving platform that is trying to make your body misjudge distance. Where is your foot going to land? Where is your center of gravity going when the deck yaws half a degree? Where is the edge in your peripheral vision when your eyes are fighting wind and spray? When the aircraft is down, but still dangerous, who has to step close enough to make it safe? That's where injuries happen, because the landing isn't the end of danger. It's the start of the most delicate part. The crew has to approach a machine that can hurt you without meaning to. Rotors can clip, exhaust can cook, gear can roll, people can slip, and the edge does not care if you are a veteran or a new sailor. One wrong step does not give you a second chance. That is why the job feels invisible to civilians. They watch the touchdown and think the story is over. The crew knows the story just started. So, how does the Navy keep that from becoming a constant casualty factory? It turns danger into procedure. That's why flight deck life gets called controlled chaos. It looks wild, but every movement is calculated. Safety zones are not decoration, they are boundaries designed around what can kill you fast. Personal protective equipment is not a suggestion. It is the baseline because the environment is hostile by default. Hearing protection exists because your ears do not get a second set. Eye protection exists because debris and spray do not aim politely. Helmets exist because hard edges and sudden motion do not negotiate. And here's the threat that looks small until you realize rotor wash turns it into a weapon. Foreign object debris, a screw, a cap, a stray tool, a piece of tape, on a quiet floor, that is nothing. On a Helo deck, it can slide, bounce, and lift. It can damage equipment. It can strike a person. It can end up where it should never be. That is why crews do deck walks and scans before operations. They are not cleaning for aesthetics. They are deleting future accidents before the aircraft creates them. The villain is routine again. The moment you treat the deck like a normal workplace, the deck reminds you it is not. Now zoom into the deadliest seconds, the part the camera never respects enough. The helicopter has touched down. The aircraft is where it is supposed to be. And yet the situation is still unstable. The rotors are still moving air like a storm. The ship is still rolling. The deck is still slick. And the aircraft itself can still shift if it is not secured correctly. This is where the job becomes stabilization work, not a chore. It is the moment you turn an aircraft from a moving hazard into a controlled object. The sailor who steps in now does not get to be casual. They move toward the aircraft using hand signals because words do not travel in that noise. They watch the rotor arc and the safe lanes because safe lanes are the difference between doing the job and becoming the mishap. They read the deck like a geometry problem in real time. Where is the wind pushing? Where is the ship rolling? Where will the aircraft want to move if the deck tilts? How fast can you secure it before conditions change again? And here is the rehook question that keeps this immersive. If your timing is off by 5 seconds, what is the consequence? Not a scolding, not a paperwork problem. Steel meets ocean. That pressure does not end after one landing because flight operations are cycles. The aircraft comes back. Another evolution starts. Night arrives. Weather shifts. The crew repeats the same high-stakes steps again and again because aviation tempo is capability. The ability to launch and recover safely is not convenient. It is reach. It is response time. It is how the ship extends what it can see and do. So what happens when you add the one factor that quietly kills performance? Fatigue. The Navy knows fatigue changes judgment. A tired sailor misses small details. A tired sailor loses that constant scanning awareness that keeps them alive. And flight deck work is built to create fatigue. Long hours, repeated evolutions, heat, noise, wind, the same tasks done with the same stakes over and over. On a destroyer, the team is smaller than on a carrier, which means the workload concentrates. There is less slack. There's less room for someone to be off their game. Routine becomes the enemy again because fatigue makes people treat danger like background noise. So training has to do something stronger than teaching procedures. It has to create muscle memory. Sailors train on equipment and signals until they can move without hesitation. They drill emergency responses because emergencies do not wait for you to think. They train for fires and fuel incidents and aircraft malfunctions because flight operations mix fuel, machinery, and heat in a way that can go wrong fast. Fire is one of the biggest fears in naval aviation, so crews train to respond with speed and correctness using suppression tools and strict steps because seconds matter when flames spread. And mental resilience is not motivational, it is survival. You have to stay calm while your senses are overloaded. You have to keep your head moving while your body is trying to brace against motion. You have to trust the person next to you, and you have to be trustworthy because this is not a solo sport. Your safety depends on everyone doing their lane correctly and everyone watching for the moment someone drifts toward danger. That is why crews bond so hard in these jobs. Not for vibes, for survival. On carriers, you can read the deck like a map because of the jersey colors, and that logic carries into helicopter operations too. Yellow keeps aircraft movement disciplined and keeps people out of bad angles. Green works around the gear that keeps the aircraft functioning and the deck ready. Purple handles fuel, which means they treat spills like emergencies because they are. Red deals with munitions when they are present and trains to run toward fires. Blue moves equipment and keeps the deck organized. Brown owns aircraft condition and checks. Whitewatch's safety, medical response, and the call to stop the evolution. That is how the deck stays alive, not because danger disappeared, because people refused to normalize it. So the next time you see a destroyer recover a helicopter and it looks smooth, do not stop your attention at touchdown. Keep watching for the seconds after. Watch who moves in while the aircraft is still alive. Watch who makes the deck safe for everyone else. Because the Helo deck does not become safe on its own. It becomes safe because a sailor makes it safe. And if you want the truth in one sentence, it is this: the deadliest job on the Helo deck is the job that steps forward when everyone else instinctively wants to step back. If you want more naval breakdowns like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button.